This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge. I, of course, am Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and here with me is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how we doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. You sound very enthused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pulling up the wheel.
Yeah. All right. So we are back. And speaking of the wheel, we actually didn't spin the wheel last time. We actually just decided
Yeah.
to choose something because it just so
Scheduling.
happens that tomorrow, as of the day that this will go out, tomorrow is an unofficial film holiday.
Wow. That's treason.
It's not official. I mean, it's not like a national holiday, but
It should
and
be.
anybody that doesn't know Star Wars doesn't really do anything with it. And to be honest, I don't know that any of the films actually came out on May 4th. I think it really is just has mostly to do with the pun.
Yeah.
But tomorrow is May the 4th. As Star Wars fans will tell you, that is Star Wars Day, as in May the 4th be with you. Yes. But yes, so we decided to go ahead and just do our review for this now. It just seemed like the perfect time to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I will say, when I looked at the poster that we are deriving our list from, and I saw this, like I was almost certain that Star Wars was going to be on it.
Yeah.
The film Star Wars, the original Star Wars, is on the AFI 100. Very groundbreaking, very influential, obviously.
Yes.
But this wasn't just the first film, or a lot of people choose Empire Strikes Back as their favorite. It wasn't even just that one. This was the original trilogy.
Yeah. All three.
All three, 4, 5, and 6. For anybody that doesn't know what the original trilogy is, for anybody that for some reason thinks that means the prequels, no. The original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6. Before Star Wars was a big phenomenon, before it was this big unwieldy franchise thing that it is now. Originally it was just the one film that came out in 1977.
Yep.
And then two more, Empire Strikes Back in 1980, Return of the Jedi in 1983, and for a very long time we all thought that was it.
Yeah. It was like 15 or so years.
Yeah, something like that. I will say, I actually have an interest in, because I was born in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And while I never watched the full trilogy until I was like maybe 12.
Oh, wow.
By the time I actually watched the full trilogy. Like I had seen, like when I was a kid, you would find Return of the Jedi playing on,
Everything.
on TV.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But if they were playing the others before it, I never got to see those parts. So the
Yeah.
first Star Wars movie I ever saw was Return of the Jedi.
That makes sense.
So I saw the last part first. And then I think for my 12th birth, or no, maybe it was for Christmas, I got a VHS copy of Star Wars just because I had expressed, just because, you know, even though I had never seen Star Wars and really didn't know what it was, I had heard the name Darth Vader from elementary school.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it meant. In fact, I think I thought they were saying Dark Vader. Like
Yeah.
I was very kind of, you know, not in the loop as to what any of these things were at all. And so, you know, I had the original on VHS and I watched it and I really liked it.
Yep.
And I knew I had seen Return of the Jedi, but you know, it had been years. I probably saw it when I was like 6 at a hotel, you know, and just saw it on network television.
Yeah.
So the one that I had not seen at all was Empire. And in 97 they did the no, I can't think of what it's called. But they put the trilogy back into theaters.
Cool.
And it was when George Lucas's first round of kind of tinkering with it a little bit. Not anywhere close to the
to what he had done.
To what he ended up doing with those films. But you know, I saw I can't believe I can't remember this term. I want to say they were definitely remastered, but it was people are screaming at it, and I'm sorry, guys, I just cannot remember the term, but it was, like I said, it was the first time that he kind of messed with the films a little bit. And I will say, for the most part, the only things like in those first kind of reissues, the biggest thing was they added a scene to Star Wars, to the original Star Wars A New Hope, and you know, the Jabba scene, and then they added a couple of sequences in the run up to Mos Eisley, but for the most part, it was really just background stuff. You know, they added some background characters just to kind of flesh out the world and things like that. And I'll be honest, I don't mind those changes. I will say I have, when I originally saw it, you know, like I said, I would have been like 14, 15, 16, somewhere. No, not quite 16 yet, but 14, 15. By the time those versions hit theaters. So at that time, I actually liked the reinsertion of the Jabba scene, but you know, now I don't necessarily feel like it was necessary. And just to backtrack, because I didn't say this at the top, one of the reasons that we're going through this is because we did not watch the current versions that you can find on Disney Plus.
No,
we didn't even watch the DVDs of, you know, earlier incarnations pre McClunky, which I've only watched that version once, and I'm just like, why? That's the dumbest. That's the dumbest single edition I've ever seen them do. But you know, before the Han shot verse controversy, there was the originals, and I actually have some copies of the originals when they first put them on DVD. They did make that available on DVD the original theatrical versions, which up to that point was really hard to get your hands on. So that's what we watched.
I liked it.
I thought it would be a fun thing for Aaron to get introduced to, because, you know, like I said, it's not the easiest thing to get a hold of. So yeah, I mean, you said you liked it. Did you notice much difference though?
No. Plus, it had been a while since I genuinely
Watched.
gone through the trilogy. Anyways.
Sure. So you didn't necessarily remember that, because for the most part, it's just things that are missing. There are definitely a couple of places where things are different.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, for the most part, it's just, you know, like, I mean, obviously the Jabba scene and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are definitely like, particularly in like Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
When they're in Cloud City, in the updated digital stuff, they've added, you know, sky backgrounds and things like that. Whereas in the theatrical version, you're basically just seeing industrial city.
Yeah.
Outside the window. So, you know, like I said, I don't really have a problem with any of those additions. Something though that I do, and I told you as we were watching it, something that I do like about watching these theatrical versions is one of the things that they did is with the these updated versions is they've gone in and kind of cleaned up some of the special effects.
Yeah, I like that part.
And I like seeing the original special effects. You know, I like being able to see what they were capable of at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it also it has a bit of charm to it, you know, like we talked about with you know, the Terminator a little while ago. You know, I mean, while some of those things you can see that it's not 100% realistic. I like being able to see, you know, the fingerprints. I like being able to see, you know, the work that went into making this movie, and just marveling at how good what they were able to do at the time was.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you watch the digital versions that are now on, you know, Disney Plus, you see effects that are at the very oldest 10, 15, maybe 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's not as...
It doesn't have the same...
it doesn't have the
y'all
same
are
charm.
going to say I'm calling you old, but it doesn't have that 80s era of the movie magic and effects and all that.
Right,
it
yeah. I mean,
has that
70s from the original, 77.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah,
you know, and, you know, like I said, they had to create a lot of the special effects that they did. I don't want that covered over.
No.
I want to see the 77 version of that.
I like how innovative they were with all the brand new things. Like, they invented so much too.
Yeah.
And I also just love how with each of them, really, majority of the Star Wars movies at the least, all have that just naturally induced setting. They really draw you in, and you feel like the vibe of everything going on through the movie.
Yes. And I finally remembered they were called special editions.
Oh.
When they went back into the theaters. So the special edition version. And to be honest, you know, I do like the special edition version, partially because that's actually the first version of Empire that I ever saw.
Oh yeah.
I got to see that in the theater, and then a little bit after that we bought the theatrical version on VHS. So I got to see both, but I got to see the special edition first.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so you know, I really want to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite of the three?
Of the original
The
that we
the
watched, I
the
was gonna say,
yes,
yeah,
the
yeah.
original trilogy. Do you have a favorite in
I
any version, but of
I
the
liked.
three originals?
I'm usually always bad at picking favorites.
Sure. But like,
It's
is there one like when it comes up, you're like, ooh, we get this one now.
uh I don't know. I'd have to really think about it.
Sure.
I enjoy the setup and the oh my god, this is also new,
Mhm.
like environment and story in the first one.
Sure. The
Uh,
original Star Wars. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
honestly, there's a lot. I know a lot of people that original Star Wars is their favorite
yeah,
because
I can see why.
it's what started everything. It's what set the template.
Yeah,
Um, I like many other people. My favorite is Return of the Jedi. Just or not Return of the Jedi. Sorry,
I was gonna say,
Empire Strikes Back. I don't know why I said Return of the Jedi. I do know a lot of people that like Return of the Jedi as well. I feel like it's the weakest of the three, in my opinion,
yeah,
but I do understand why some people like it. You know, it's the culmination of the story. I get that. But to me, Empire, it's the introduction of Yoda, which,
oh
I
yeah, of
mean,
course,
Yoda, even just within that trilogy, is such a great character.
yeah,
Honestly, I think he's more interesting of a character in the original trilogy than he is in any of his later
yeah,
uh his later scenes. But we get Yoda there, we get the introduction of Lando, we get the kind of the chase through the asteroids. There's just so many things about that film that I just really enjoy,
yeah,
and then of course there's famously the reveal of Darth Vader being his father. Was there ever a point that was a surprise to you, or did you know that before you ever got to see the movies?
I think I knew it
Okay.
before I saw the movies, like even
Yeah.
as a kid.
Yeah, honestly, me too.
Yeah,
Like that was, like I said, Return of the Jedi was the first one that I saw.
yeah,
So, and I think I had heard kids say that but I had no context to
I
what that meant.
yeah,
But Jedi was the first one that I saw. So, I just took it as given,
uh huh,
because that's what it is. By the time you see that movie, it's just
yeah,
accepted. So, but, when that first happened in Empire,
yeah,
even on set, I've seen a famous interview with James Earl Jones. He said his first reaction was he's lying. The voice of Darth Vader was certain that he was lying.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it definitely it was very controversial. And then by the time the
yeah,
third one rolls around, they're not even questioning it. They're just like, yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And it's just like, wow. It's funny to put yourself back to a space where that was unique,
yep,
where that was a shock. Because now it's like you said, everybody knows it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was actually gonna go on a list, but I do like what we talked about. It like we go up to Empire next after the
Mhm.
first one, and I'd say we see Luke's like slightly more experienced.
Mhm.
We're seeing the Rebel Alliance in more depth than we ever saw in the last one,
Mhm.
and it's like you're getting a feel for what it is, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We see a bit more of Vader.
Yeah.
A lot of other thing. I don't really remember that one as much.
We kind of get the scene where he's like in the pod, like you see like the
Yes.
back of his head, outside of the mask.
I love just all the Vader stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've like looked into all the comics and all the extra and
Sure.
legends, and I love all that stuff. Most people don't, but there are some who do. And it feels weird, but I don't care. If I did have to pick a favorite of the three, I'd say Return of the Jedi. There's just a lot of things in that I like more.
Sure.
Like of course we see at the end of the story
Mhm.
We get the funny little Ewoks. I love Endor.
Sure, the forest planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, we actually also got to watch part of the recordings that I had interviews from George Lucas.
Yes.
And, with Leonard Maltin, who you were not familiar with,
No, not
but
at all.
he's a pretty big deal in the film critic community. Has written lots of movie guides and things like that. A hero to many a critic.
Yeah.
But one of the things that George mentioned there is that part of the inspiration for Endor was just, well, we've done a lot of other basic
Yes.
setups. They'd done a desert planet, an ice planet, things like that. So it's like, so the next logical step was forest planet.
I liked how he talked about the colors and how they paired with everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fun. The darker colors, or not the darker, but the more plain and just border set colors
Sure.
fitting with the Empire and being very sharp and stuff.
Now, I want to ask you, because you brought them up, the Ewoks. Were you aware that they're controversial?
Because they're evil?
No. A lot of people think they're stupid.
Why?
It's they're compared a lot of times to like Jar Jar Binks in
If you hate Jar Jar,
I mean,
I can't say that.
I will say
you've got issues.
I will say Jar Jar's not my favorite. I don't hate him with the malice that a lot of people do. I don't think he's necessary.
Yeah.
But a lot of people felt that way towards the Ewoks when it first came out. There's kind of like a cutoff, and it's been explained like this in shows and things like this. But most people, if you saw them when you were a kid, are much more receptive to Ewoks.
Yeah.
Whereas if you saw them later, more adults that saw it for the first time had a hard time with it, didn't think that they were necessary, or thought that it was too comedic. I mean, I will say I do get it.
I guess
the evil empire being brought down by tiny little bear men.
That's one thing. If you only go by the movies, you don't know what the Ewoks are doing.
Sure. I mean, I will say I never had a problem with them.
Yeah,
but I do get the but honestly, it wasn't until maybe 10 years ago that I even knew that people felt that way.
I didn't know about that until now.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
You
were today years old when you found that out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other material that is canon. Last I looked.
I mean, it's Star Wars. People are always going to find things that they do like or they don't like, and they're always going to be like, "That's not Star Wars." I'm like, "It is." Sorry if you don't like it, but it's in there. It's Star Wars.
Yeah, that's your fault.
Maybe it's not the way that you choose to see Star Wars, but it's in there. It's yeah. Sorry, not sorry. But anyway, just to kind of, start to wrap this up, I will say, and this is probably the first time that you have seen this version, at least that I know of.
The theatrical releases?
Yeah. But specifically, and honestly, this didn't happen until I think with the DVD releases. The one big change that I really do not like. I mean, you want to change the song at the end of Jedi. Yub Nub, I think it's silly. But it's fun. Don't really have a problem if you want to change it to a slightly more somber, instrumental. My big problem don't give me Hayden Christensen at the end.
Yeah.
Leave me with Sebastian Shaw. I don't, because my argument with that has always been Luke is going to be like, oh, there's Obi-Wan, there's Yoda. Who's that young guy?
Yeah, who the hell is this man?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I'm like, he met him, and if you're gonna do that, then go the full way and replace Alec Guinness with Ewan McGregor.
I love Ewan McGregor
because it doesn't make sense for Anakin to be the young version and Obi-Wan to still be Obi-Wan. Now, the reason they don't do that is because the fans would be up in arms if you replaced Alec Guinness. And honestly, they're probably not too happy with. And here's the thing: I am not a Hayden Christensen hater. I mean, I honestly think that he was given way too much flack for those films. Those films are not his fault. Whether you love them, hate them, indifferent, it's not. He did what he was asked to do. My main thing is number one, it doesn't make sense to replace halfway, and it doesn't make sense really to replace at all because that's not the version that Luke saw. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to replace him with Hayden Christensen. But that's my tiny little soapbox. I'm gonna get off of it now. My back hurts. But anything else, Aaron, that you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
Go watch some of the other Star Wars movies just because they're worth it.
Okay.
These were amazing, though.
Huh?
The original three are always amazing.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. So make sure to check us out on all of our socials at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, at the Flying Cow Pod at gmail.com for the email. Make sure we are on YouTube Music, so make sure to go there and like and subscribe to us. Leave a review, all that kind of stuff. I never say any of those things, but as anybody that does podcasts know, drawing attention to it definitely helps other people find it. So make sure that you're doing that for everything that the Flying Cow does. But Aaron, it is time for us to figure out what film we are going to be reviewing next. So first of all, which wheel are we spinning from, sir?
Let's do the unseen again.
All right. Again. All right. So we are going to do another unseen film. So go ahead and spin that wheel.
It's actually not super slow this time. What do we got? Mary and Max.
Mary and Max.
I don't even recognize the title.
I will say this is one of the more obscure films that is on the list. I think it's like a stop motion film of some kind. I think it is a foreign film. I'm not 100%. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about it next time. We'll figure it out. But I will say this wheel is it's so interesting to me because before we did this, we marked out all the ones that you hadn't seen.
Yeah.
And separated them from the ones you had, the ones you hadn't. And I also marked the ones that I hadn't seen. And out of all of it, there were only like 15 to 20 that I had not seen. We are hitting more that I have not seen than I have. It's really bizarre to me. I mean, eventually we're going to run out. We just will if it keeps going this way. But the wheel dictates Mary and Max, so that is what we will be watching. So make sure to join us next time for that, if for no other reason than just to find out what the hell this movie is. But until that time, moo.
Moo.